Hi, hello, welcome back. Haven't seen you since last year. You're probably regretting it, but you most likely clicked on this video because there is a part of you, even if it's just a small part, that knows your health could use some improvement. Maybe your eating habits haven't been the best.
Stop your eating!
Or you don't remember the last time you worked out. It's okay, judgment-free zone. We've all been there, myself included. But the good news is you're in the right place because I have some tips to share that might help.
You know, here's a healthy fitness tip.
I've shared this before, but fitness has always been a big part of my life. I actually have a full fitness journey video on my channel if you're interested. But I knew when I started teaching, even though I was going to be incredibly busy, I wanted to continue to prioritize a healthy lifestyle because it brings me joy. So even though I was busy teaching full time, I was coaching teams after school, I was running my business, and I was in grad school, I still found time to train for multiple marathons, prep for a powerlifting meet, and I even lost 25 pounds without cutting out any of the foods that I enjoy. Trust me, it wasn't easy, but it also wasn't as hard as it probably sounds. So whether your goal is just to feel better about your nutrition or move your body more, or you have a super ambitious goal like I did, I'm gonna be sharing 10 simple steps you can follow to get started. Step number one is to audit your current habits. When I was in grad school, I was still working out, but I was not prioritizing my nutrition. I was eating all the time because I was stressed, I wasn't making the best choices, and I steadily gained weight for about a year and a half during that time. Once I realized I wanted to make a change, the first thing I did was figure out what am I currently doing that's not really serving my goals. If you're trying to make a budget, one of the first things you have to do is figure out how are you currently spending your money. That way you know how you can change it in order to fit that budget. As teachers, when you're incredibly busy, it's easy to kind of ignore or at least not pay attention to your current habits. So one of the first things you need to do is have an honest look at your current nutrition and fitness habits. So for example, how much water are you currently drinking? How many servings of fruits and vegetables do you get in a day? How many calories are you eating? And I'll be honest, people just as a whole are not good at estimating, especially when it comes to their food intake.
Yeah, well, maybe next time you will estimate me.
We tend to underestimate how much we're eating. And if you have an honest look at it, you might realize that you've been eating a lot more than you think. Maybe not volume-wise. You may think I only have 2 small meals a day, but if you look at the caloric content of those meals, it will be more than you are expecting. You should also look at how much protein are you eating? How many grams of fiber do you get in a day? How many steps do you get in a day? How many minutes do you spend moving your body? So I recommend, even though it's daunting, take a week, don't change anything, but just track what you're currently doing. Figure out how many steps you get in a day. Figure out how much water you drink. Track your food. I suggest using an app and using a food scale to get an accurate representation of how much you're eating. That's gonna give you your baseline, and from there, you can start to make those changes. And that brings us to step 2, which really is a mindset shift. You need to see numbers as data. When it comes to health and fitness, there are a lot of numbers involved. Numbers related to your body, numbers related to your food, numbers related to your performance. A lot of people will recommend not utilizing the scale, but instead relying on progress pictures. Ultimately, you have to do what's best for you, but I'm gonna share my perspective and opinion. I think both are important, but you have to detach your emotions from the numbers. Ultimately, numbers are just data that can help you track progress. So your weight, your steps, your calories, etc. And just like when students take assessments, whatever score they get has nothing to do with their value as a person. It's just a representation of their performance on that given day. But those numbers, that data can still be helpful to utilize in order to see patterns and be able to see trends over time. I'm gonna tell you right now, your weight is going to fluctuate daily. Personally, my weight will fluctuate up to 7 pounds in a given day. Why this is important to know is because if you're only weighing yourself once a month or even once a week, you're not getting a clear picture of those trends over time. It could be possible that you had a meal high in sodium the night before, and so your weight is higher. It could be possible if you are female that your cycle is approaching and your weight is higher. You could be bloated from stress, from traveling, from all these different things, and that's going to affect your weight. I recommend tracking your weight on a daily basis and then taking a weekly average over time in order to see those trends. Now, if you ultimately don't care about the number on the scale that's not conducive to your goals, then sure, don't worry about it. But if losing weight or trying to reduce your body fat is important to you, I do recommend weighing daily. Detach your emotions, see that it is just a number, and find those trends over time. Speaking of which, step 3 is to set a goal. Just like you set a goal for a lesson before you teach it, you need to set a goal for your health or fitness.
What is your goal? Help me!
That way you can work backwards and figure out what actions are gonna help you get there. So a few examples of this, maybe you just wanna improve your overall health. Maybe you had recent blood work and you wanna be able to improve those numbers. It's possible that your goal could be physique related. So maybe you wanna lose body fat, maybe you wanna gain muscle, or it could be related to training. Maybe you wanna improve your strength or you wanna complete a 5K for the first time. Once you have that goal, you can figure out what nutrition or exercise changes you need to make in order to get you there. So if your goal is to lose body fat, you need to make sure you're in a caloric deficit, which means you are eating less than what your body is using. If your goal is to build muscle, you need to be in a caloric surplus. So you need to be taking in more calories than what your body is burning so that your body can use those calories to build muscle. If your goal is to improve strength, make sure you're following a progressive overload, which means you're lifting a little bit more or a little bit heavier each time. And if your goal is to train for a race, you should probably be following some kind of a training program. Then you are ready for step 4, which is to start small. Just like you wouldn't expect a student currently scoring a 50% to suddenly jump to 100%, you have to set yourself up for success by making small incremental changes. Think about this as building habits. You can start by drinking more water or getting in more movement, increasing your steps. I do recommend setting a specific amount, that way it's easier to track your progress. If you've currently been getting 3,000 steps in a day, aim for 4,000. Once that feels easy, up it to 5,000. Same thing with water. If you've currently only been drinking about 30 ounces of water a day, try to get 40 ounces. And once that's easy, try to get 50 ounces. If you're struggling with this, think about it as ways you could add more instead of just taking away. So for example, instead of focusing on drinking less coffee, because that's gonna be hard, focus just on drinking more water. Instead of focusing on eating less sweets, try just to eat more vegetables.
Eat it.
And speaking of water, step 5 is to drink enough water. I don't care what your goal is, it is important to be well hydrated for your brain function, your body function, your mental health, all of it.
Water, babe?
No water me. Not while rabies causes fear of water.
I can't tell you exactly how much to drink because it depends on the foods you eat, your body composition, the amount of exercise you get, even the climate that you live in. So as gross as it sounds, the best indicator is the color of your pee. You want to aim for lemonade, not apple juice. But keep in mind, if you drink a lot of water, personally, I drink a gallon a day, you have to make sure you monitor your electrolyte balance, so your sodium, potassium, magnesium, calcium, etc., because water flushes all of those electrolytes out, so you might need to supplement with them. So a few tips if you struggle to drink water, because that used to be me. I hated the taste of water. First of all, have it nearby, and preferably with a straw or a lid that's easy to access, because if you have to unscrew it every time, you're not gonna be very motivated to drink water. But you can also set reminders on your phone. They even make water bottles that have little reminders of where you should be at throughout the day. You can also add flavor drops or those little flavor packets into your water to enhance the flavor if you don't like drinking plain water. But I will say, the more I started drinking plain water, the more I started craving it. And I already know what you're thinking. You're like, Michelle, I can't drink water because I don't have time to use the bathroom throughout the day as a teacher. Let me just say, I found ways to still drink a gallon of water while teaching. First of all, your body does start to adjust. When you first start drinking it, you will have to pee all the time, but eventually your bladder strengthens. As teachers, we already have pretty strong bladders, but Find a teacher nearby who would be willing to watch your class, or strategically adjust your water consumption throughout the day. So maybe you drink a lot when you first wake up, then you kind of cut it off a little bit, and then just before the day ends, you start drinking more, and you drink more in the evening time. But there are ways to make it work if it's important to you. Step number 6 is to eat enough protein. Once you start tracking your intake, you're probably gonna find that you are not getting in enough protein. I think the general population struggles to eat enough protein.
Who eats 8 protein bars?
And it's so important for helping your body repair cells, maintaining your muscle mass, and reducing your hunger hormone ghrelin, which in other words, protein helps you feel full. Now, a lot of people think you only need a lot of protein if you're trying to build muscle, but in reality, your protein needs are highest when you're in a caloric deficit because you wanna lose body fat, not muscle mass, at least in most cases. I can't tell you exactly what your specific protein needs are because it varies depending on your body composition. A rough estimate would be around a gram of protein per pound of body weight, but I suggest utilizing Macros Inc. They have a free macro calculator on their website. I've been using it for a couple of years now, and it's all backed by science. They also have a free Facebook group where you can get your macros checked by professionals. If you are looking for protein sources, obviously you can use meats like chicken, beef, fish, pork. You can also use things like eggs and egg whites, even though they're really expensive right now. You could also utilize Greek yogurt, cottage cheese. If you don't eat meat or dairy or you have an allergy, things like beans, lentils, edamame, tofu, tempeh, even nuts. Or you could always supplement with protein powders.
Protein powder, huh?
I'm gonna be sharing some of my favorites in upcoming videos, so stay tuned. And since we're on the topic of food, step number 7 is to plan your meals. Just like you create a plan for your lessons, you need to create a plan for your meals.
This is not the meal I was promised.
I went through a time where I was not meal planning at all, and I ate out a lot as a result. Now, I have no problem eating the same thing almost every day. If that's not you, this process becomes a little bit more intensive. But personally, I eat basically the same breakfast and lunch almost every day, and then I just change up my dinners. So when it comes to meal planning, I'm just planning out dinners for the week. Typically, Billy and I will sit down, we will come up with the meal ideas we wanna have for dinner, and as we come up with those, we're also creating our shopping list based on those meals and what we need to get. We also will add in any of those staples, so those things that we constantly have on hand, like rice and oats and almond milk and butter, and if we need any of those things, we add them to the list. We go grocery shopping typically on Sundays, and then we're just cooking dinner each night, but we use very simple meals that take less than about 30 minutes. Little hack for you, if you are buying meats and then freezing them because you're not gonna use them in time, set a reminder to remember to take it out of the freezer because otherwise you get home, your chicken is frozen and you have to eat out. But I do have videos with breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack ideas for teachers. They're all very easy and they have a good balance of macronutrients, so protein, carbs, and fats. I will have those linked for you down in the description box. But a few other tips to help you out, you can utilize meal prep where you're actually preparing your meals in advance. So you could cook up a whole dozen egg muffins that you're gonna eat throughout the week, or you can make overnight oats where you're prepping it the night before, sticking it in the fridge, and all you have to do in the morning is grab it. If you don't have a microwave at school, make sure your lunches can be eaten cold. So maybe a sandwich, or taking a tuna packet, or having a salad with cold chicken on top. If you're making a dinner and it's a dinner that you like, you can make enough that you have leftovers. Chili is great for this, and then that can be your lunch for the next few days at school. I especially like to make these meals on Sunday so that I can eat them for lunch or even dinner throughout the week. I mentioned earlier your goal might be to eat more vegetables. I personally utilize frozen veggies all the time. They're cheap. They come in just a steamable bag. I throw them in the microwave for 5 minutes. Do they taste the best? No, they taste like vegetables, but you can add seasonings. They have like ranch seasoning at the store that you can sprinkle on top to make it taste better. But at the end of the day, just keep your meals simple. Choose a protein source, choose a carb source, and choose a fat source, and you're good. Step number 8 pun intended, is to increase your NEAT. Now, NEAT stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Essentially, it's all the movement outside of regular exercise. So walking, fidgeting, any ways that you're moving your body throughout the day. Movement is super important for your overall health, your mobility, and fat loss, because at the end of the day, your body is subject to the law of thermodynamics. Your body is subject to the law of thermodynamics, which means energy in and energy out. So in order to increase your energy out, you need to move your body more. But a lot of people mistake that to mean you have to exercise a ton. If you exercise for an hour a day, that's still only about 4% of your day. When I lost the 25 pounds, my only movement was going for walks because it was during COVID and the gyms were all closed. So instead of focusing on working out a ton more, just focus on ways to increase your movement throughout the day. So a few ideas for this. When you get to school, park a little bit further away. If you have things to bring in from your car, take multiple trips. Make sure that you're moving around your classroom while you're teaching.
Just walking around.
If you have to go up to the front office, take the longer walk. And when you get home, if you're emptying the dishwasher, I personally like to put each dish away individually. It takes a little bit more time, but it gets my body moving more. So just start to look for ways that you can increase your movement throughout the day without it being dedicating specific time to exercising. And that brings us to step number 9, which is choose a workout you love. If you are going to exercise, make sure it's an activity you actually enjoy doing. If you hate running, don't force yourself to run.
The treadmill.
I hate yoga, so I don't do yoga, but I do love lifting weights, so I train in powerlifting. At the end of the day, consistency wins. And if you hate that form of exercise, you're not gonna be consistent with it. I do recommend, however, trying to incorporate a mixture of aerobic, which would be cardio, it's good for your heart, strength training, which is good for your muscles and bones, as well as mobility and flexibility, because that's good for preventing injury. Personally, I go for walks, I lift weights, I train as a power lifter, and I stretch and foam roll. Now, if you struggle with motivation in this area, first of all, finding an activity you enjoy will help with that a lot, but there will still be days where you just don't wanna do it. So in that case, try to pair it with an activity you love. So maybe you listen to your favorite podcast while you go for a walk, or buy yourself some new workout gear if you need just that little extra motivation. And I do recommend tracking your progress. So keeping track of the distance that you're covering, or the amount of weight that you're able to lift, or how far you're able to stretch. That way you can see your progress over time, and that's gonna motivate you to keep going. Speaking of which, step number 10 is to prioritize your recovery. So make sure you're getting enough sleep, and if you're not, try to develop an evening routine that will allow you to fall asleep and stay asleep. You also need to make sure you're drinking enough water and have balanced nutrition. We already touched on this, but when you're well hydrated and you have a good balance of protein, carbs, and fat, your body will recover faster. And then take rest days.
Must be nice to get a rest from all your rest.
I personally take 2 rest days a week. During those days, I still go for walks and I'll still stretch and foam roll, but I don't adjust my calories on those days. I'm still intaking the same amount because recovering is when my body is actually putting that fuel to work. But some other forms of prioritizing recovery include stretching, foam rolling, taking hot baths, getting massages, cold plunge. There are so many different ways to help your body recover, and you have to do what works best for you. Now, if you want more information on what I specifically do, so the apps that I use, how I track my food, my workouts, leave a comment down below to let me know. I want to incorporate that in some of my future videos, but keep in mind what works for me is not necessarily what's going to work for you or what's best for you. But hopefully you got at least a few ideas of things that you can implement in order to feel like your best self. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. As always, thank you for watching. Don't forget to put your positive pants on, and I will catch you in the next one.